The room was alive with laughter, the kind that spilled out of glasses and echoed against the walls, yet she and I seemed to exist in a quiet bubble of our own. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. We were only meant to meet through friends, just another face in the circle, another polite introduction that would fade into memory. But the second our eyes met across that crowded room, it felt like someone had shifted the air. She didn't look away, and neither did I. There was something unspoken in that gaze, something that pressed on the edges of my chest and made my pulse skip. Her name was Elena. She said it softly, almost like she was testing how it would sound on my lips, and I remember repeating it in my head again and again, unwilling to let it slip away. The night moved on with chatter and music, but she was a constant, always there, just a step away, her presence magnetic. Later, when the group broke off into smaller conversations, I found myself standing beside her at the balcony. The city stretched out beneath us, glittering lights flickering like 1,000 tiny secrets. She leaned against the railing, close enough for her perfume to wrap around me, a warm mix of jasmine and something darker, more mysterious. "You're quieter than the rest," she said, tilting her head, her eyes sharp yet curious. "I like to watch," I admitted, smiling nervously. "Sometimes you catch more that way." Her lips curved upward, but it wasn't amusement, it was recognition, as though she understood exactly what I meant. A silence settled between us, comfortable and dangerous all at once. Every inch of me was aware of her, the way her fingers tapped lightly on the railing, the way the faint glow from inside lit her hair, turning it almost golden. And then, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, her hand brushed mine. Just the back of her fingers against my skin, light as a whisper. My breath caught, and I wondered if she felt the same spark leap between us. I dared a glance at her, and the knowing smile she gave me told me she did. It was a simple touch, fleeting, almost innocent. Yet it felt like a door had opened, a boundary crossed without words. My heart raced as I curled my fingers slightly, just enough that our hands lingered together for a heartbeat longer than necessary. That was when I knew this wasn't just chance or a passing connection. Something had begun, and I was powerless to stop it. The night stretched on, but time around her seemed to bend. The others were still inside, their voices a blur of laughter and music, but on the balcony, it was as if the world had shrunk to just the two of us. Elena didn't rush to pull her hand away, and I didn't either. Instead, she let her fingers trail along mine, a touch so subtle it could have been mistaken for an accident, except we both knew better. "You feel that too, don't you?" she asked, her voice low, her eyes fixed on me with a quiet intensity. I swallowed, suddenly aware of the thrum of my own heartbeat. Yes, it was the only word I could manage, but it was enough. Her smile deepened, softer this time, almost vulnerable. She turned back toward the city lights, but her hand stayed near mine, close enough that if I moved even an inch, we'd be touching again. The temptation was unbearable. I shifted closer, drawn to her warmth, to the mystery of what she wasn't saying out loud. She glanced sideways, her gaze catching mine. "Do you always look at people like that?" "Like what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Like you can see right through them. Like you already know their secrets." Her words hit me harder than I expected. No one had ever said that to me before, and yet here she was, a stranger turned confidant, peeling me open in seconds. "Maybe I just noticed things," I murmured, though even I wasn't convinced by the deflection. "Or maybe," she countered, leaning just a little closer, "you're searching for someone who notices you back." The air tightened between us, charged with something fragile yet fierce. I couldn't look away from her. Every detail was imprinted on me, the curve of her lips, the gleam in her eyes, the way her voice wrapped around me like a secret meant only for my ears. When she finally reached out, it wasn't sudden. Her hand slid gently over mine, her fingers weaving through like it was the most natural thing in the world. And though it was such a simple gesture, my entire body responded as if she had spoken directly to my skin. Her touch was steady, confident, yet tender. She didn't grip too hard, didn't rush. It felt like she already knew the rhythm of my heartbeat, the way my body wanted to be held. I drew in a sharp breath, trying to steady myself, but Elena's closeness made it impossible to think straight. "See," she whispered, her thumb brushing lightly across the back of my hand. "Some things don't need words." She was right. In that moment, I couldn't have spoken if I tried. My silence wasn't emptiness, it was surrender. I let her lead, let her hold, and let myself feel the gravity of what was pulling me closer and closer into her orbit. The night air had grown cooler, but the warmth of her hand lingered against mine like a quiet fire. I couldn't ignore it anymore, the magnetic pull that seemed to tug me closer with every second. The laughter and chatter from inside felt like it belonged to another world, one I no longer had any desire to return to. Elena must have felt it too, because she tilted her head toward the sliding glass door and murmured, "Too loud in there. Want to go somewhere quieter?" I hesitated for only a heartbeat before nodding. My voice would have betrayed just how badly I wanted to follow her. She led the way down the dim hallway, her fingers brushing mine as if guiding me without ever truly letting go. Each step felt deliberate, every sound of our footsteps amplified in the silence. We found a spare lounge tucked away at the end of the corridor, a room barely lit by a single lamp, its golden glow soft against the shadows. She closed the door gently behind us, and suddenly, it was just her and me, the air heavy with everything we hadn't said. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I leaned against the arm of the sofa, my heart thudding with a rhythm I couldn't control, while she lingered in the doorway, her silhouette outlined by the faint light. It felt like we were suspended in time, waiting for the first move neither of us could resist. "You're different," Elena said finally, her voice carrying both curiosity and certainty. She took a step closer, then another, until the space between us was a breath away. "Not many people make me feel this, aware." Her words unraveled something in me. I wanted to ask what she meant, but the answer was already there, in the way her gaze never left mine, in the way her presence filled every inch of the room. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself. "You make it hard to think straight," I admitted, my voice trembling with honesty I hadn't planned to share. Her smile curved knowingly, but it wasn't playful, it was tender, almost reverent. She reached out again, this time placing her hand on my arm. The touch was delicate, yet it spread through me like lightning, making every nerve come alive. Her hand slid down slowly, brushing over the sleeve of my dress, trailing lower until it found my hand once more. She intertwined our fingers with a certainty that felt practiced, natural, as if she already knew exactly what I needed without me having to say it. In that stillness, I realized something undeniable. Her hands didn't just touch, they spoke. And every word they traced against my skin whispered that she already understood me in ways I had never been understood before. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was charged, waiting, promising. And I knew, deep in my bones, that this was only the beginning. The room was hushed, so still that I could hear the faint rhythm of her breath, steady yet charged with something unsaid. Elena's fingers were still laced with mine, and though it was such a simple act, it felt monumental, like we had already crossed a line we couldn't return from. She looked at me with a gaze that held no hesitation. "I don't usually do this," she admitted softly, her thumb tracing lazy circles against the back of my hand. "I don't usually let myself feel so much so quickly." The honesty in her words disarmed me. I felt the same, but hadn't dared to speak it aloud. "Me neither," I whispered. "But with you, it's different. It's like I don't have to pretend." Her expression softened, and she stepped closer, so close that her presence seemed to wrap around me. "That's rare," she said, her voice dropping to something almost reverent. "Finding someone who makes you feel like you can just be." I nodded, my chest tightening with emotions I hadn't expected to feel tonight. "It's terrifying," I confessed, "but it's also the most alive I've felt in a long time." Her eyes shimmered in the soft lamplight, and for a moment, she simply studied me, as though memorizing every detail. Then she reached up slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. Her hand hovered near my face, the warmth of her palm grazing my cheek as her fingers brushed a strand of hair aside. The touch was featherlight, but it sent a shiver racing down my spine. "You're trembling," she murmured. Because of you, I admitted, unable to hide the truth. Her lips parted slightly, a mix of surprise and something deeper flickering in her expression. She let her hand linger against my face, her thumb tracing the curve of my jaw. It wasn't hurried, wasn't demanding, it was deliberate, filled with a kind of tenderness I hadn't known I was craving. The silence between us thickened, every second stretching longer, filled with possibility. She leaned in just a little, close enough that I could feel her breath ghost across my skin. My heart hammered, each beat louder than the last, until I thought she must surely hear it too. Elena, I breathed her name, unsure if it was a plea or a prayer. Her smile was faint but certain. You don't have to say anything, she whispered. I already know. Her hand remained at my cheek, steady, grounding, and yet everything about her touch hinted at something more. I felt the gravity between us pulling tighter, drawing us into a space where words no longer mattered. And in that quiet, with her so close I could taste the possibility of her, I realized whatever came next, I wanted it. With her. Only her. The room seemed to dissolve around us. The lamp's glow, the muffled laughter from down the hall, even the steady hum of the city beyond, all of it faded until the only thing that remained was her hand on my cheek and the unshakable pull between us. Elena's eyes held me there, locked in a silent conversation. They were dark and steady, full of a question I already knew the answer to. My breath caught as her thumb brushed gently along my skin, pausing just long enough to make me ache with anticipation. Can I? She whispered, her voice delicate, reverent, as if she were asking permission to touch something sacred. I didn't trust my voice not to tremble, so I nodded. Just once. Enough. She leaned in slowly, giving me time to feel every inch of the space collapsing between us. Her closeness was dizzying, her perfume, warm and floral, wrapping around me, her presence filling every corner of my senses. My heart raced, my palms tingled, and when her lips finally touched mine, it felt like the world shifted beneath us. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, as though she were testing the waters. But the moment I melted into her, pressing back with a need I couldn't contain, it deepened. Her hand slid from my cheek to the back of my neck, steadying me, guiding me, and I felt myself surrender completely. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a confession. Every brush of her lips spoke the words we hadn't yet said out loud, every tilt of her head a promise. She kissed with the certainty of someone who knew exactly what she wanted, and yet with the gentleness of someone who understood how fragile this moment was. When she pulled back just slightly, our foreheads rested together, and I could feel the faint tremble of her breath against my lips. I knew it, she whispered, her voice husky with emotion. From the second I saw you. I smiled, my eyes still closed, my body still thrumming with the aftershocks of her touch. So did I admitted. Her laugh was soft, almost disbelieving, as though she hadn't expected me to say it back. She pressed another quick kiss to the corner of my mouth, lingering just long enough to remind me this wasn't a dream. And then she pulled me closer, her arms winding around me, holding me against her. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe, not because the world had changed, but because I had found someone who made it feel like it could. This was no longer about chance. This was fate, deliberate and undeniable, sealed in the taste of her kiss. For a long moment after our kiss, we just stayed there, foreheads pressed together, breath mingling, hearts racing in unison. The silence wasn't awkward. It was thick with everything we had already said without words, and yet there was more, so much more, pressing at the edges, demanding to be spoken. Elena's hand lingered at the back of my neck, her fingers gently tracing the line of my skin, grounding me, keeping me anchored when my thoughts wanted to spin away. Her touch wasn't just steady, it was knowing, like she had memorized me in a matter of minutes. I pulled back just enough to meet her gaze. Her eyes were softer now, stripped of the teasing confidence she'd worn earlier on the balcony. What I saw instead was vulnerability, the kind you don't show just anyone. I don't know what this is, I admitted, my voice trembling in the quiet. But it feels real. Too real to ignore. Her lips parted, and for a moment she didn't speak, as though searching for the right words. Then she whispered, "You're not imagining it. I feel it too. And I don't want to run from it." Her honesty cracked something open in me. For so long, I had built walls around my heart, layers of hesitation, fear, and the quiet ache of pretending not to want more. But with her, those walls didn't stand a chance. She reached through them with nothing more than a touch, a look, a kiss, and suddenly, I was bare. "Why me?" I asked, the question spilling out before I could stop it. "You could have anyone. Why me tonight?" Her smile was faint, tender. "Because when you walked into the room, it stopped feeling like just another night. You looked at me like you saw me, not the version I put out for the world, but me. And I can't let that go." Her words sank deep, a warmth spreading through me that made my chest ache. No one had ever said something like that to me before. No one had ever made me feel so completely seen. She lifted her hand to my face again, her thumb brushing along my cheekbone with the lightest touch. "I don't know where this is going," she said softly, "but I know I want to find out with you." I leaned into her touch, closing my eyes, letting the weight of her words settle in my heart. My fear didn't vanish, it whispered still, a reminder of how dangerous it felt to open myself this way. But stronger than the fear was the pull toward her, the certainty that whatever risk this was, it was worth it. And as she leaned in to kiss me again, slower this time, deeper, like she was sealing her promise, I realized that maybe for once, I didn't need to guard myself. With Elena, it felt safe to fall. Her kiss lingered on my lips, warm and deliberate, as though she wanted to etch the memory into me. When she finally pulled back, her hands didn't leave. One rested against my cheek, the other still tangled with my fingers, her touch grounding me as if she feared I might drift away. But I wasn't going anywhere. If anything, I was afraid of letting go. The quiet of the room wrapped around us, intimate and heavy with anticipation. Every flicker of her gaze, every brush of her thumb against my skin, every breath between us spoke of something growing stronger than either of us could control. "I feel like I've known you longer than a night," I whispered, the words slipping out before I could second-guess them. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Me too." It's like my hands already knew where to go before my mind even caught up. She let her fingers drift lightly down my arm, tracing a path that left goosebumps in their wake. Like they've been here before, even if I haven't. Her words stole the air from my lungs. It wasn't just the way she touched me, it was the way she understood me, as though every unspoken thought had found a home in her. I tightened my grip on her hand, afraid of breaking the spell. "Doesn't it scare you? How fast this feels." "Terrifies me," she admitted, her voice soft but steady. "But it also feels inevitable. Like fighting it would be a mistake." She stepped closer until there was no space between us, her body warm against mine. I could feel the steady beat of her heart through her chest, syncing with my own, each thump an echo of what we both knew but hadn't dared to fully name. I let my head rest against her shoulder, inhaling the faint jasmine scent of her hair. For a moment, I just stayed there, wrapped in her presence, allowing myself to surrender. She stroked my back gently, her hands slow and deliberate, as though every movement was meant to reassure me. "This feels different," I murmured against her. "It is different," she whispered into my hair. "You're not just another moment I'll forget tomorrow. You're the moment I know I'll carry with me." Her confession cracked me wide open. No one had ever said that to me before. My throat tightened, and I pressed closer, as if I could slip beneath her skin and never have to leave. Her hands moved with certainty, gliding over me with a tenderness that made my chest ache. They weren't rushed, weren't claiming, they were knowing, as if she had memorized every place I longed to be touched, every spot where comfort met desire. And in that embrace, I realized something undeniable. I didn't just want her for tonight. I wanted her for every tomorrow I hadn't yet dared to imagine. The world outside kept spinning, but within the quiet cocoon of that softly lit room, time held its breath for us. Elena's arms wrapped around me, her touch steady, grounding, and I clung to her as though letting go would mean losing something I hadn't even realized I'd been searching for. When she tilted my chin up, her eyes glimmered with both fear and certainty, a contradiction that only made her more real, more human. "You don't know how badly I wanted this," she confessed, her voice trembling despite the strength in her gaze. I felt the weight of her words settle deep inside me, filling the spaces I'd kept hidden for so long. "I think I do," I whispered, because I felt it too. The wanting, the aching, the unshakable pull that defied reason. Her lips met mine again, slower this time, deeper, as though she was trying to memorize every curve and taste. It wasn't rushed, wasn't desperate, it was reverent. Each kiss was an unspoken vow, each brush of her hands against my body a promise that she knew exactly how to love me into stillness, into fire, into something I hadn't known I could be. Her touch trailed down my arm, over my waist, settling at the small of my back. She pulled me closer until there was no space between us, until our bodies fit together like pieces of a puzzle that had been waiting for this moment. I melted into her, my fears dissolving with every breath, every kiss, every certainty that grew stronger the longer I stayed in her arms. When we finally broke apart, our foreheads pressed together once more, our breaths mingling in the quiet. She smiled then, soft and a little incredulous, as though she couldn't believe what had just unfolded between us. "This feels like the start of something I didn't even know I needed," she said, her voice husky and raw. I closed my eyes, savoring the truth of her words. "Maybe we were meant to find each other tonight." Her laughter was low and warm, the kind that seeped into my skin and stayed there. She kissed me again, quick and playful this time, before resting her head against mine. "If this is just the beginning," she murmured, "I can't wait to see where it takes us." I held her tighter, knowing she was right. Whatever lay ahead, uncertainty, risk, vulnerability, it didn't matter. What mattered was this moment, this undeniable connection, this spark that had turned into a flame. And as her hands moved over me again, sure and gentle, guiding me deeper into her embrace, I realized the truth of it all. Her hands had always known. They knew where to go, what to hold, what to promise, because they had been searching for me, just as I had been searching for her. It wasn't the end of the night that mattered. It was the beginning of everything that followed.